Chances are you heard about the big $80 billion nuclear deal between the federal government and Westinghouse and Cameco and Brookfield. Brookfield Renewable stock is up. Cameco owns 49% of Westinghouse. 51% is owned by different Brookfield entities. I'm here to break it down and tell you what it means for those different entities, how you should think about it as an investor. I'm Jason Hall. This is Investing Unscripted. Before we get into the details of the deal, though, I just want to tell you about our partnership with the Motley Fool. It's a sponsor of this video. We get to make these great videos because of that partnership. Now, this is a great idea that I'm going to talk about with these companies. But if you're looking for even more great stock ideas, please go check out our special link. It's fool.com/unscripted. You go to that link and you can get access to the Motley Fool's 10 best stocks to buy right now. You can get great new ideas every single month. It's worth your time and money. It's actually how I started as an investor back before the financial crisis, is with the Motley Fool helping me as a member. So I really encourage you to check it out. Again, fool.com/unscripted. Okay, let's start right here. Cameco and Brookfield's press releases. We'll start with the Brookfield press release. So the deal is at least $80 billion to construct new Westinghouse nuclear power reactors. And what does that mean, Westinghouse? The AP1000 is kind of like the gold standard for large scale nuclear. It's a 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant. The AP300 is their small modular reactor design that's based on the AP1000. And then they also have a micro reactor that they're developing as well. This is a big deal. The federal government, its role is to kind of be the backstop and provide financing for these nuclear reactors. Now, we've seen a lot of deals from Westinghouse over the past couple of years. There's certainly been a reestablishment of momentum for nuclear, not just about AI, that's a big part of this, but also just for getting more carbon-free energy, replacing aging coal power plants. Nuclear is having a moment right now, and Westinghouse is right in the middle of it. Cameco owns 49% of Westinghouse. Now, the big thing for Cameco is, in addition to the distributions that it would get as a 49% owner of Westinghouse, is that Cameco is a provider of uranium. It is a fuel provider to the nuclear industry. That is its core business. Okay, so let's talk about upside and opportunity here, what this means for these different partners. So again, we know that Westinghouse is 51% owned by Brookfield and its affiliates, 49% owned by Cameco. Who gets what? What's the upside here? We're going to start with Brookfield Renewable. That's ticker BEP, with Brookfield Renewable's 2024 annual report. And you see we've got Westinghouse highlighted right here. So here's the short version. Brookfield Business Partners, ticker BBU, that's the private equity subsidiary operating business of that whole Brookfield family of businesses. Back in 2017, Brookfield Business acquired Westinghouse out of bankruptcy for a song. In 2022, Brookfield and Cameco started having discussions about Cameco acquiring an interest. And what ended up happening is, in late 2023, Brookfield Business sold Westinghouse to Brookfield Renewable, along with its institutional partners, which is basically the funds that are managed at Brookfield Asset Management, the funds that come from large institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds, family offices, really wealthy individuals. They bought 51% of Westinghouse. 49% of Westinghouse was bought by Cameco. It's a $4.37 billion deal. Now, only $442 million of that is held by Brookfield Renewable. Essentially, 10% of Westinghouse is owned by Brookfield Renewable. That establishes some baseline for the upside for Brookfield Renewable in its exposure to Westinghouse. The question then is, what could that 10% possibly be worth? So part of the deal with Westinghouse is that it will pay distributions back to its owners. Really, the way I think about it is it has three owners. You have Cameco that owns 49% of it. You have Brookfield Renewable that owns 10% of it. And then the other 41% of it is owned by those institutional partners. You get very little information about what Westinghouse distributes to its owners from any of the Brookfield entities. Number one, it's a very small position for Brookfield Renewable, and then it's held in multiple different funds, is my assumption, across Brookfield Asset Management. But Cameco, they mentioned Westinghouse a couple of hundred times in their annual report. And in their 2024 report, One of the things that we learned was in February of this year, Cameco received a $49 million distribution from Westinghouse. That was its 49% of a $100 million distribution that Westinghouse paid. That's the first distribution that was paid since the acquisition closed. All right, so that gives us a little bit of an understanding of the structure. So Westinghouse is a highly cyclical business. It's got some things going on. The Vogtle plant down in Georgia commissioned in the past year and a half. The second AP1000 that facility had. There's other ones in construction in other places around the world. The company's trying to target beginning construction on 10 in the US by 2030. That was before this $80 billion deal with the federal government and Cameco was announced. So there's a lot of momentum. But again, that $100 million that we saw that was paid out in February, 10 million of that flowed to Brookfield Renewable. I want to put that in context against the cash flows for Brookfield Renewable. So what you see on the line here, this is the trailing 12 months, the last 4 reported quarters. The purple line is EBITDA for Brookfield Renewable, almost 3.2 billion, and then operating cash flow, almost 1.5 billion. So 10 million, not a whole lot of money, but the expectation is that as more construction activity kicks up, Westinghouse is in a great position to start receiving fees and earnings for the services that it provides, for access to its technology, licensing agreements, that sort of thing. And then as more and more AP1000s, AP300s eventually start to come online, recurring revenue services that it would begin to earn over the long term. So here's the key. Here's what I want to stress. I think this is probably more meaningful for Cameco than it is for Brookfield Renewable. I'm not saying that Cameco is a more investable stock right now. I love Brookfield Renewable. I think investors just have to be conscious that it only owns 10% of Westinghouse. There's going to be a lot of opportunity there as Westinghouse really gets busier and more AP1000 construction begins. But we're still years ahead of that happening, and it's going to take time for those results to pass through to Brookfield Renewable. The key thing I want to stress, if you're looking at Brookfield Renewable, don't think about nuclear as the big thing that's going to drive it forward. This is still going to be a diversified business. It's exposed to lots of renewable and low carbon emission sources. Nuclear is just part of it. Wind and solar is still going to be the majority of its business. Hydroelectric is going to be in there as well. It's a very well-run business, and they're smart about how they make capital allocations. So that Westinghouse exposure is a nice part of it. It's kind of a cherry on the top, but it's not the thing I think that makes it totally investable. For Brookfield Asset Management, it owns 41% of it through funds that it manages on it, but it has $1 trillion in assets under management. The fees that it will earn on the distributions and the growth in value of Westinghouse are just a drop in the bucket, even for Brookfield Asset Management. So this is an important deal. And it's a great signal of the opportunity and that nuclear is really starting to accelerate. But just keep in mind that this is not some massive opportunity across any of these enterprises, but it's another signal of the growing strength of nuclear. And Brookfield especially is an organization that is smart and knows how to make money. And I think it's a good signal that nuclear is certainly going to play a big role in driving the future of energy. And Brookfield investors are going to make money from that.